Welcome to another in-studio edition of Students First, a production of the Rochester City School District. I'm Tom Petronio, Communications Director for the school district, and your host for Students First. Hurricane Katrina, which struck the nation's Gulf Coast in August 2005, was one of the most devastating natural disasters in our nation's history. More than 1,600 people lost their lives, and thousands more lost their homes. Out of this disaster, however, came a positive result. The volunteer effort that found people from across the country joining together to help those ravaged by the hurricane. Among those volunteers was a group from the School of Applied Technology at Edison here in Rochester, who traveled to Gulfport, Mississippi in March to help in the rebuilding effort there. And we're privileged to have some of the staff and students with us today here on Students First. Joining us are Kathy Hargis, Assistant Principal of the School of Applied Technology at Edison, Ben Wild, Carpentry Teacher, and Joe LaPlaca, Electrical Teacher at the School of Applied Technology at Edison. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be meeting with some of your students in the second half of our program today. Kathy, it's a wonderful idea. Students from Edison traveling down there to help in the rebuilding efforts in the Gulf area. How did the idea come about?
Well, the hurricane happened right about the same time that we started our beginning of the year staff development, and Mr. Wild came in and said, I think this is what we should do. And so at the time, everybody said, yeah, that'd be a great idea, but I don't know that we really thought it would ever become real. And so we started the process of looking into it and trying to secure funding and seeing if we could make that dream of going a reality.
Must have been a huge matter to get your hands around. How did you coordinate with other agencies to try and make this become real?
Well, initially it was difficult, and we had to wait a little bit because there was so much devastation that organizations were interested in just feeding and getting water to people. We were interested in taking our students down to really use their construction skills. We wanted to take our seniors, and it wasn't until about November that we could even start talking to organizations about rebuilding. And so we finally got connected with an organization called Hope Unites, and they had been down there a couple of times, and they hooked us up with an organization there, the North Carolina Baptist Men's Relief Organization, and we worked with them to start the process of going and airplane flights and place to stay and a way to feed the students while we were down there.
Now you had 22 students and 9 staff from Edison that went down?
We had 22 students and 9 adults.
9 adults.
Right, and so we had people from other places just besides Edison. I mean, our Center for Youth Counselor went, and someone from the Youth Construction Initiative program, as well as another person that had some skill in carpentry.
And everyone's heard about the devastation in New Orleans, and that's been sort of the focal point of a lot of volunteer efforts. How did you guys choose Gulfport near Biloxi in Mississippi?
We really were focused on wanting to use our students' skills in the construction trades. So we wanted to go somewhere where they were ready for reconstruction work. And a lot of people have gone to New Orleans. Most of the work still to this day, which is 7 or 8 months later, is digging out mud and debris and emptying homes of all of a family's belongings that have been destroyed. We went to Gulfport, Biloxi area, because the water came in, it didn't sit there, the water went out, and they had phenomenal damage. Water went in farther than it ever had, but the people there were ready for people to come in and start rebuilding. So we chose to go there versus New Orleans so we could actually do rebuilding work.
I see.
Which is what we wanted to do.
Ben, what was your first impression upon getting to Gulfport?
Well, when we first drove in at night, we saw all these businesses were up and running, and we thought, this doesn't seem that bad. But then daylight came, and we could see the incredible devastation. Anything that is standing, that is looking good now, has been rebuilt since last fall. So, and everything that hasn't been touched is either an empty lot or houses still with trees on top of them, or they're starting to be rebuilt.
Now, where did your group stay when you reached Gulfport?
We stayed in a National Guard armory that this North Carolina Baptist men have borrowed for the next 2 years to do their work. so that we slept on cots in various rooms around the armory.
And you were sharing quarters with other volunteers from around the country?
Yeah, there were quite a few different organizations. A lot of college students came in. As we said, this North Carolina Baptist Men, they had a steady stream of volunteers coming in, plus other people that were going to stay there for the entire 2-year program.
What, in your impression, was the scope of the devastation in Gulfport?
I've explained it like looking at pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki when you look along the coast. I mean, miles and miles of nothing. Just what were cottages and hotels and casinos and luxury homes are gone. All you see are the concrete slabs. Occasionally there'll be a building still standing on piers, but the entire first floor is just washed away.
Sounds like a tremendous task for not only the Edison group, but all the volunteers who were there. Joe, how did you get your marching orders, if you will, from the organizers down there as to what the students and yourselves were actually going to be doing as far as work?
Well, the first morning after we organized everyone, we were in, and they have probably like a superintendent. And this gentleman has volunteered to stay for 2 years to organize the efforts of finishing those 200 or 500 homes that they committed to. And they had, it was very organized. You went in and they had work orders, and they looked through, found out what my trade was and the trade of my students, fished out 2 work orders, handed me a list of what needed to be done, a map, and said, go to work. So it was kind of intimidating at first because we're used to working. Our initial assessment was we were going to go down and assist people with things. But they just said, here you go. These 2 houses are yours. This is what it needs. Let me know if we can help.
So much work to be done that you just had to take it and
Right.
run with it.
So you went and we looked at it and assessed what needed to be done, and our group started.
And you had students from what trades?
Well, with my group, pretty much most of the students were electrical students, and you know, one of my seniors who's here today, Manny, I was able to delegate a lot of the instruction to him, and I could leave and go work in another area with another couple students, and he was able to carry on. And
So a lot of responsibility that they took on.
right.
You know, one of the things about the job assignment process that I was actually excited about or appreciated was that the North Carolina Baptist Men's Group had a person or several people that went out and assessed applications for their help. And I really, when we started meeting the people that we were helping, every single house that we went to, the people certainly weren't able to do the work or didn't have money to do the work themselves. So I really felt we were helping people that needed the help. And we went to one home where the woman was 73 years old. She had a heart condition. She had a daughter with a disability. They were living out of town in a FEMA trailer that they were going to lose in a couple of weeks. And they had, you know, she came and insisted on helping us. It's like, no, yeah, we're doing construction work here. We were taking up the tile on her floor, and it's like, so, you know, one of our students went out and talked to her and did a little gardening work with her while the other people worked inside to get the work done. But each person that we met, each house we went to, their family had a story. They all shared their stories. But the good thing about it was that you really knew you were helping people that couldn't have done this alone. They didn't have the skills or they didn't have the resources to hire people to actually do the work. So that was a good thing.
And in addition to electrical students, you had who else with you?
We had carpentry students, we had masonry students, and we had heating, ventilating, air conditioning, sheet metal students.
So you did a range of work on a range of houses from various states, I understand, various conditions, I should say. Tell us a little bit about what the daily work was like.
Well, my crew ended up taking a house that the roof had literally exploded off of one end of the house as the hurricane had pushed in the garage doors and blown off that whole end of the house. So we ended up on that particular job rebuilding the roof and then re-roofing the entire house. We had other crews that were hanging drywall. We had crews that were insulating. Joe's crew doing the electrical, pulling up tile, whatever needed to be done. None of the jobs that we were assigned were jobs that were no-skill jobs. Even something as simple as pulling up tile, there's technique to it. You have to sharpen your tools. It was a job that the average person coming down would have a real struggle doing.
So it required the skills that the students brought
Yes.
with them. Joe, tell us from the electrical side, what were some of the conditions that you saw and the work that you were completing?
Well, the house we did the majority of work in, this gentleman was a photographer, and he was living with his wife and 3 children in his studio with no cooking facilities and no real shower facilities, and his parents were in his backyard in a FEMA trailer. And what had happened to him is they didn't have any flood insurance because the water had never gotten that high before. And they showed us the marks. The marks were around 6 or 7 feet inside the house. So it pretty much wiped out anything electrical that was in there. And so what we did is we went in and ripped out all of the old stuff. So we spent the first couple of days just tearing things out that needed to be torn out and dragging stuff out to the curb. And then we went back in and again, it was a little intimidating at first. There was no blueprint, so there was nothing to go off of. So we had to go through and position the boxes and decided what had to work what and where he wanted the lights. And
Really start to finish,
yeah,
start
basically
from
it
scratch.
was a work that we did on the back of a piece of cardboard. We actually laid out the house on a piece of cardboard and marked outlets and in lights so we could figure out how to wire it.
How do you think this experience, obviously it gave the students a lot of hands-on opportunity and a lot of responsibility to take on a complete project. What do you think the value overall was to them as far as it being a learning experience?
Oh, there was just so many levels of lessons on this. At one point, we were rebuilding a wall that had been destroyed by termites. And the kid asked the question, why are we rebuilding termite damage? And the simple answer was, they can't put this house back together until all the damage, no matter. But the levels of lessons off of that was like a sample of how this entire community had an underlying problem that the hurricane brought to the surface. Those termites had been there for a long time. And the kids were really, I think, touched on various levels by what they saw. We were forewarned before we went there that we should bring mental health professionals with us because it was awful tough to hear some of these stories and see the situation people were living in. But I think the kids responded real well.
This was an opportunity, I think, for our students. Normally when they want information, they come to us for information. We give them the information. We're who they rely on, and it's kind of, it's nice and comfortable for them. But they had to step out of their comfort zone here, and now people were relying on them to get it right, which I found kind of unsettling. Is you wanted to make sure these people were in enough trouble, and you wanted to make sure that everything you did it right. I found myself up, late at night, figuring things out on a piece of paper and trying to figure out who was going to go where and what we were going to try to get done in a day. And then we had to pass that on, and the students had to assume a very high level of responsibility fairly quick.
Because these families had to live with the work that you did, so you wanted it to be perfect.
Right.
Kathy, the aspect of it as far as pulling the trip together, you had support from individuals, you had support from some sponsors. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came together?
Sure. Our biggest challenge, which still continues to be a challenge, was paying for the trip. It was about $800 per person who went down, and that was airfare, our luxurious hotel accommodations, and
At the Armory?
our wonderful North Carolina cooked meals. So they fed us as well. But so it was about $800 per person, and we raised that money through a variety of sources. We had some corporate sponsors. We had faith-based organizations. We had a group of preschoolers who walked and raised money for us in a walkathon, and mostly just asking people to donate. That was a big challenge. We got our airfare tickets paid for, and we got on the airplane and went. So that was great. And then, the other big thing, it's not easy to fly with a group of students. There's a lot of paperwork that the airlines require. And there was also a little bit of a challenge. We took 22 students, and that's 22 sets of parents who allowed us to take their students to a disaster area. That's a lot of faith or trust they had in us, because we're like, well, what are they going to be doing? And we're like, we're going to be doing work, but we're not sure what. Where are they going to be sleeping? Well, it's not going to be in a hotel. It's not like there's not a phone number. Here's my cell phone number. This is how you can contact your child if they don't have, any other way. And, we weren't eating in restaurants, and we were sleeping in an armory. We were sleeping in Sunday school rooms in a church. We were better off than many of the people who are still living in tents, are living in blue tarped areas under bridges, are living in FEMA trailers that are built for 4 with a family of 8, or like our electrical friend who's living in his office with a single bathroom with his wife and 3 kids. And so as much as sleeping on an air mattress wasn't anybody's idea of a great time, our accommodations were oftentimes better than those of the people whose homes we were working on.
So put it all in perspective.
So we had to keep saying, yep, we're in a disaster area. And someone asked us, well, what did you do for entertainment? And it's like, if you had gone down to Biloxi before the hurricane, we could have said, oh, let's go out and rent jet skis and go in the ocean, or, let's go down to this facility. There is no entertainment in Biloxi. I mean, we drove, and went to a movie one Sunday afternoon as a treat, but that was it. We had to drive, 20 miles inland to find a movie theater to go to the movies, and that was the total sum of our entertainment while we were there. We did homework. That was our other entertainment for academic classes. But there, it is a disaster area. So the parents let us take their kids to a disaster area, and I think that was a big step of faith in us and what we were going to do also.
Not the traditional class trip.
Right, right.
Okay, Kathy Hargis, Ben Wild, and Joe LaPlaca from the School of Applied Technology at Edison, thank you for joining us. We're going to meet with some of their students when we return after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to this edition of Students First. From March 2nd through 13th, a group of students and chaperones from the School of Applied Technology at Edison ventured down to Gulfport, Mississippi to assist with the repair efforts following the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. And we have with us in the studio today 3 of those students who made that trip. LaShonda Morgan from the carpentry trade at the School of Applied Technology at Edison, Manny Hernandez, an electrical student, and Stephanie Brow, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning at the School of Applied Technology at Edison. Thank you for being here with us today on Students First.
Thank you.
LaShonda, let's begin with you. When the idea was first raised at the school about let's take a trip down to this hurricane devastation area and do some work, what was your first impression?
Well, I was not sure because I didn't know how much debris was left down there. But I wanted to. I wanted to do it because it would have been a great experience. So, and plus I never really been out of town like that, so I wanted to see what it was going to be like, anyways. And then I did want to use some of my skills that I did learn. So, and I really wanted to see what it was really like to be in that field, because that's probably what I want to do when I graduate. So,
Manny, how did you feel when the idea was first raised?
I was real interested in the idea of going to Mississippi to rebuild and just be able to go down there and help out in any way I could. And I had spoke to my teacher about it and thought that it'd be a real good idea to go down there, and for me personally and other students and faculty from our school. But it was just a sort of, when we got ready to leave, around the time that we got ready to leave, I was sort of iffy about it because I had just started a new job and I really couldn't take that long out of work to, to go and do something like that out of town. You know what I mean? So, but I spoke to my teacher and he convinced me to go. So pretty much I was real excited to go though.
And Stephanie, did you feel like it was going to be an opportunity to use some of your skills from Edison in an actual work site?
Well, we didn't know what we were going to do down there, but I was hoping to do some of my skills, but it was okay because I got to do other stuff with like other students from this different shop classes, so it was okay.
Learned
I
a
didn't
variety
mind.
of home repair and home building skills. Was it intimidating at all to think about going down there before you actually left?
I was kind of excited about it because I was like willing to help, the people down there and stuff. So I wasn't like really getting intimidated by it. I was like wondering, asking a lot of questions like, how's it gonna be like, and stuff like that.
And it sounds like among the three of you and probably your fellow students, the opportunity to use the skills that you've learned in school in an actual work environment where that work was needed was kind of exciting.
Most definitely.
And that was the rewarding part of the trip. LaShonda, tell us a little bit about the work that you did and any stories you've got about being on the job and the types of things you saw there.
While down there, my first job was roofing, and I'm scared of heights, but I was so excited to get up there, and when I got up there, it was totally different. So I tried it because I wanted to get the feeling of being up there, but that didn't kind of work out. So I went to a man named Rob's house, and his house was all right, but this one room needed help. So basically there what I did was drywall, and I only did drywall once, like I said, and I got to use my measuring skills. My friend Justin helped me a lot, so that became one of my favorite things to do. It was kind of exciting because we actually got the job done, and I was ready to go to the next job. So basically all I really did was drywall down there. I wanted to do electrical and try other different stuff, but I didn't really get to do that. So basically, it was a good experience. So
you got to do the drywall, which you hadn't had a lot of experience
exactly.
in. But it was what was needed. So
And it
that's where you
became one of
filled
my
in.
favorites anyway.
That sounds good. Manny, electrical work. Tell us a little bit about that. What were you doing in the houses, and what were the conditions that you saw in which you were working?
Well, like I said, the house I was working in, and me and my fellow classmates and other faculty from our school was pretty destroyed, completely just shocked electrical-wise. And we actually had, the electrical team actually had two houses to work on. One of the houses, they had to rewire the whole house, which is the house I had to work in. And another house we had to put into service, which is the main power to the house from the post outside. So while my teacher and another student two other students would work on that house, I had got delegated as sort of like the foreman to the house we were working in, which is pretty much like the supervisor over the house running the team. So I had about a team of about 4 to 5, maybe sometimes different days 6 people I was working with besides myself, and I had two students that knew the electrical trade and other students that they knew it, but not as much as I would think they did, or you know what I mean. They weren't to my level, I guess. And I also had a teacher that I was working with that she knew nothing about electrical, so she was just there helping out. So I sort of taught her, and the rest of the students, we sort of taught each other a little bit of what we all knew and put our ideas together to get the job done.
How did that feel to be in a foreman role?
It was demanding, you know what I mean, because I've never been put in that position. I've just been the one to be told to go do some work, and I'm willing to do the work myself, you know what I mean. But it was pretty good. It was good. It was a lot of responsibility, or definitely enough responsibility to have to watch over a group of 5 to 6 people and be able to have the job done, the job that I'm delegated to do, have it done at the end of the day. But it was exciting. It was a pretty good experience.
Learning experience to be in charge of other people?
Yeah, it was definitely a big learning experience for me.
Stephanie, what do you feel you gained from the whole trip? You were able to learn some new skills, I know. You were able to work as part of a team. Tell me what you think the most important lesson you've learned, or the most valuable thing you've brought back with you from this trip.
Like we learned a lot down there. Like not only that, we got to also bond with our teachers, like besides like in the school, which is pretty cool, you know, like we got to help them out, like the areas where we were working at, like, you know. And I don't know, it was like a different experience for me because it was very emotional. I was very emotional when I got down there because, you know, seeing all these, you know, debris and all that stuff, like the houses and everything, it was pretty bad. So I came back and I was like, I was still in shock when I came back home still because I was like still like picturing everything. And not only that, I was reading through my diary because we kept a diary every day, like the girls kept a diary and we wrote everything down like that we did during the day and stuff. And every time I read the diaries, like sometimes I get tears in my eyes because it's so emotional, you know, and very devastating.
Just seeing what you saw
Yeah.
was an emotional experience, I
Yeah.
would imagine. How did the work take place? Did you bring tools with you? Were you able to get tools down there? What were the working conditions like actually from on the job standpoint?
Well, two of our teachers, Ben and Joe LaPlaca, had drove down there with pretty much most of the tools that we needed, like the smaller tools, screwdrivers, drills, certain stuff like that. But the North Carolina Baptist Men, the other organization that we were working with, or for, should I say, they had a lot of the tools and more like bigger tools that we would need for the job site, like anything bigger that we couldn't carry in the truck. So they had it and they provided us with the most of the tools.
And what about the living conditions that you were in? We know you stayed, some of you were at a church facility, some of you were at an armory. What was that whole experience like?
Well, for the girls, it was nice. It was like so clean and the room was just big and we all had our personal own space. And we actually, I got to bond with some of the girls that I, like in school, I barely talked to anybody, but with them, they became like family because we were so close, and like the teachers became like moms, aunts, and everything. So, it was very comfortable. And then we got like 2 other people that came down from college with a parent, and they had to stay in our room, and we bonded with them too. So it was real nice for the girls, but from the guys, I heard that it wasn't so nice. They had to do a lot of remodeling, and it was uncomfortable, but.
Remodeling of their own quarters?
Yeah.
Was that the fact, Manny?
Well, yeah, I can't really say that the guys had it as easy as the girls, no offense, but, you know, we did have to do a little cleaning, a little work in our quarters of living, you know what I mean? It wasn't the Hyatt. It definitely wasn't the Hyatt. So we adjusted, so, you know, we managed with what we had, and we weren't really there to have fun and be comfortable and have really a good time. That was in the back of our head, but our main goal was to work and get the job done.
How did your families feel about letting you go on this
They were
trip?
proud of us.
Oh, my mom was excited because she knew I always wanted to, like, sometimes I wanted to work with my dad because he do construction. So, like, it was just, my dad was going to go down there one time, but it was funny because I got to go before he did. So everybody was happy, and I never really did something so big. So everybody was looking forward to my story when I came back. So it was exciting. It was really exciting.
Any nerves on the parts of your family, nervousness of letting you go, or were they all pretty much proud that you stepped up and offered to do this work?
My family was proud.
Yeah, mine also.
Yeah.
What do you think, in the big picture, you are bringing back with you from this trip? Obviously, you had practical skills in the field that you've been studying and that you possibly want to do for a living. What about the big picture, seeing the devastation that you saw, being a part of the solution to that problem, and then returning back home?
Well, I came back with a different state of mind, like, because when we was down there, it wasn't about us. It was about them and helping them. So my whole attitude was changed. It was like I wanted to help so much, so it wasn't like all my selfishness that I had before was gone. When I came back, it was like I had a different mentality and different thinking about everything. Like, it just was devastating, like looking from the plane down. We didn't really see anything. All we seen was blue types on the roofs, and it like from seeing it from on the news, it's totally different. Like, you probably ignore it because you see it on the news, like, yeah, that's bad. But when you get there, it's emotional because, like, it's a disaster. It's not, I mean, who wouldn't want to help?
Yeah, like when I seen it, like the whole hurricane thing in the news, I was like, wow, I was like really hurt, you know, like I felt like, oh my God, you know. And I was telling my mom one day, I was like, you know, I would like to help these people one day, you know what I'm saying? Because they're going through so much right now, and it's like, wow, this hurricane just came in and wiped everything, you know, their homes, everything that they worked so hard for. And it's like, I really want to help them, you know, because I like to help other people. And when I heard about this trip, it was like, wow, I was so excited about it. I was like willing to help, and it was a really good experience for me. Very good.
Like the trip will definitely change your point of view on just life itself. You know, it makes you appreciate all the smaller things in life that people have, and most people, a lot of people, definitely myself, I could say really like sometimes take for granted. Like just being able to wake up in the morning to turn on the light, go to the bathroom, you know what I mean, in your own house, feeling comfortable and clean and to yourself and having your own. And a lot of people, most of the people down there really couldn't do that anymore, just like talking. It definitely made you realize what you had and how good you really have it.
Well, you guys, I can't imagine that anybody wouldn't be proud of the work that you did there. You speak really well about it. You sound proud of yourselves, and I know that our community and everybody at Edison is thrilled with the work that you did down there, and you're wonderful students, and we're very happy to have you here to tell your story on Students First. So thanks a lot for being here, and congratulations on being part of a solution to a major problem.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today on Students First. We've had as our guests on this portion LaShonda Morgan, Manny Hernandez, and Stephanie Brow from the School of Applied Technology at Edison, who had an eye-opening and rewarding experience assisting in the Hurricane Katrina region of our nation earlier this year. So we thank them for joining us, and we thank you for joining us here on Students First.